Where's Sophie? Are we supposed to just start? I'm confused with this thing.
Cheers.
Do you think we should just start? Welcome, everyone, to a super session. Better be super.
Yeah.
We're relying on you, Hans, to make it super.
Thank you.
And we have a super subject today. Welcome to the era of personal entertainment. We're going to be talking about personalized video, the technology, the culture, the business opportunities. And the way we're going to do this is you're going to get 2 for 1, or actually 3 for 1, or actually 5 for 1. We've got Hans Vestberg, the CEO and president of Ericsson, here to lead the conversation, to kick things off. Then for the first half of this super session, we've got Marnie Walden from Verizon and Mark Mills from IndyCar here to talk about the era of personal entertainment. And then after that, we've got my old friend John Donovan, the head of technology and operations at AT&T, and George, and I hope I'm going to get this name right, George Strompoulos from Fullscreen. So, Hans, let's chat about this era of personal entertainment. Welcome to it.
Thank you.
And two easy questions to kick off, Hans.
Okay.
Firstly, what is it? What is this thing we call personal entertainment? And secondly, what the hell are you doing here? What does Ericsson have to do with personal entertainment? I thought we
were friends, but that's fine, okay. I start with the second one, and I will come to the first one. I mean, I came here 2010 for the first time to CES. In the world, the smartphone had just arrived. It was 350 million mobile broadband subscriptions in the world. And we came here as Ericsson, fairly unknown here, I have to say, even though I didn't like it. And I talked about the network society. Anything that benefits from being connected will be connected in the future. Fantastic vision. And we also launched that we will have 50 billion connected devices by 2020. It's a little bit hard to explain that will happen in that moment, but we saw the start of it. And if you see today, I mean, it's just an amazing development in 5 years. It's now 3 billion mobile broadband subscriptions in the world. And not only that, we see an enormous lot of devices being connected. And of course, what we are doing as Ericsson, we're not only doing the technology, we're doing a lot of TV media, compression, media, etc., as well as IT in order to make that happen. So I think that in 5 years it's grown that at least people understand why we're here. Because finally, all these devices, all this connectivity has to be carried on technology and different type of applications and softwares in order to get there.
So you mean what you're saying is when my video doesn't work on my personal machine, I can blame you?
Yeah, partly.
Well, what is this era of personal entertainment? What do we mean by it?
What we mean is that we're now going into the sort of the second phase of this, I would call technology revolution. I mean, the next 5 years is going to be an extremely expansion on technology. By 2020, 65% of the Earth population will have 4G coverage. 85% of the Earth population will have 3G coverage. 2020, 90% of all people on Earth above 6 years old will have a mobile phone. And we know that the majority of them in the network is going to be some kind of video and content. Already now, 45% of everything in the networks is video and content. And by 2020, we believe that out of the 50 billion connected devices, 15 billion of them, 1.5, is going to be video enabled. That's the era of personal entertainment, because we're going to see a totally new way of delivering experience when it comes to live events, how you're going to consume, when you're going to consume, and where you're going to consume content. So I think that's what I call personal entertainment.
Good start, Hans. Let's have the first couple of guests up, and we can continue this conversation. Marnie and Mark, are you in? I hope you're in the audience.
I hope so too.
Here we are. Neither of these guests require much of an introduction. Marnie is the EVP of new business initiatives, new business at Verizon, and Mark is the CEO of IndyCar. So let's start again, Mark and Marnie, begin with Marnie. What is this? And by the way, welcome to the era of personal entertainment. I hope you're happy to be here in this new era. What does it mean?
Well, I think, as Hans said, it's first that people want to consume what they want, when they want. If I take my own personal household, so we're a family of 3, our primary viewing devices are our mobile devices, either tablets or phones. We don't even call it, it's interesting, my son's 10 years old, he doesn't even call it a television, he just calls it a big screen. And the only time we really gather around that is we're hockey fans and we're also Bronco fans, so we've got a little thing going here that we're going to play out. But it's consuming where you want, when you want, and what you want. But I also think there's this notion of collaboration and sharing. And so when you hear people say, hey, do they want the same experience they get on the TV or the big screen? I actually think the answer is no. They want something completely different, particularly the millennial generation. They want to be able to do collaboration, sharing, planning around it. And so I think it's a very unique experience to them, that to individuals, versus sitting down and planting yourself in front of the big screen or TV.
Mark?
Well, there's a lot of parallels in the way I think about it. I used to think we were a sport. Now I understand we're a content provider. And that is the way we think, because for any sport, it's all about fan engagement. You want more fans, more engaged, more often, more deeply. Racing is great for that because there's so much going on if you're at the track. And if you're at home and you're still watching that bigger screen, you're going to have the companion mobile device in your hand. My focus group is 3 boys, and I can't remember the last time I saw them watch a television without another device to enrich that experience. And we have so much with the technology and the innovation that's here and coming to deliver. At the track, we suffer a little bit from the fact that they're big places, right? Lots of laps, 2.5 miles more. And so you can't see the whole thing. It's not like a football game. So again, to have technological aids for the fan at the track really improves the experience. So it's all the future for us.
So Marnie, where are we when it comes to the technology? Are we in the beginning of the beginning? Is the technology ready really for prime time in this age of personalized information? What are we missing, or do we have everything? Do we have every ingredient now to make this a viable ecosystem for 21st century entertainment?
Yeah, I think the technology's there. Obviously, Ericsson and Verizon have partnered for a very long time. The ability to now do multicast, which you'll see come out this year, gives us the ability to broadcast live events, whether it's IndyCar, sports, music, so one-to-many in a very efficient way that's efficient for both Verizon as well as how we would charge the consumer. There's also many other things that multicast can do, and we're talking about some of that at CES, like doing over-the-air upgrades for vehicles where you can push a large amount of data. But the live ability to be able to do live events now is here, and that will become very real in 2015. I think there's other things that need to happen with changing business models. There's obviously a lot going on in the content space that is, probably a part of another discussion. But you're starting to see that change too, and I think it's happening because the consumer is demanding that it happens the way they want it to. So I think we're going to see a lot of things shake out, but I think the technology's there.
Hans, I'm not going to ask you about technology because you'll tell me it works.
Thank you.
He tells me it works too, so that feels really good.
I'm consistent at least.
What about on the business side?
Yeah.
Do you think we're ready for action on this? Have these guys and everybody else in the content ecosystem, have they worked it out yet?
I think everything they said I'm 100% agreeing with. I mean, there's few things you want really to see real time. A sports event is one of them. But you bring your own experience, your personal entertainment with you, and that's some type of device. And of course, what we see right now is that, remember one thing, one time in a lifetime when you went to a soccer game, basically the network was not used in the first half, but in the halftime, everybody making a call. Second time, nothing used. Nowadays, the network is full all the time during a game. So people want to do it very personal. So that's one. The other thing is that we have things like LTE broadcast, where you can get different camera angles, you can use the frequency in an efficient way. And then on topping that, think about everything you see here. It's sensors all over. I mean, I can just imagine how many sensors in the car, on the driver, and suddenly you can get the personal experience at the site, just understanding my driver that I like to follow and what's happening in the car.
So Mark, give me some examples of how actually this is working for you in terms of personalizing the entertainment that you broadcast for your fans.
So, especially with multicast, I think of it in kind of two buckets. One is the live experience, and the other is the on-demand experience. On demand, you can imagine we've got more content, more archival material than we can make available. But we also are feverishly gearing up to create content, different series that will appeal in different ways to different tastes of motorsports fans. So that's Tracking Yellow, a weekly show that talks about whatever happened that was a little traumatic, perhaps, as in Yellow Flag. There's Race Week, which talks about what happened last week and what's going forward, and on and on and on. We can't make this content
Is the consumer more demanding? Do the consumer demand a voice in this? They're not just sitting back anymore?
Yeah, I guess the answer is we watch what they take, and so we'll get better all the time at providing what they need. And of course, we hear from them directly. So.
And what do you hear? What are they saying?
That we're a bunch of idiots. And
well, that's IndyCar, isn't it?
No, I don't think so, actually.
That was a joke.
No, they want more of their favorite stuff, their favorite race, their favorite drivers. They want the heart rate, and they want to see fear in their favorite drivers real time.
So they want intimacy. They want to be in that car.
They want this personal experience.
And you guys are able to provide that, right?
Right.
What comes after that, though? At what point do we hit a wall in terms of this personalized information, or do we continue to evolve it?
I don't think you hit a wall. I think the ability, so if you take the example of follow your favorite driver, or if you're in the NFL, it could be follow your favorite, quarterback or player on the field. And as we see the adoption of those types of services, we can continue to expand and enhance them. So I think there's a ton of opportunity in the space to even make it more personal. And the other thing that I mentioned, if you think about sharing, so when I see something I like and I share it with my friends, the ability to get more and more eyeballs around that and create these experiences that we know people like, I think it's got endless possibilities to personalize. And the consumer is sitting right in the middle of that and plays a huge role.
And what's the relationship between the medium and the content? How is the size of the screen, particularly the smaller size of the screen, influencing mobile content? Hans? Do you have any sense?
Of course, the size of the screen is depending a little bit what type of thing you can view. But a smartphone today, you can easily handle a live broadcast on that without any problem. You get a good. But that's part of what we are doing in the technology. Of course, we need to know there are hundreds of different type of screens size, and we need to provision all those. And that's the type of things we need to do to see that, to get that experience, and that all the things looks as they should on that screen. So I think, and that's where we're there with that type of technology.
Mani, you said that your family doesn't watch a lot of big screen stuff. I mean, my own anecdote is I took my 17-year-old son out and said, you can buy anything you want for Christmas. And he bought the full set of wired DVDs, which he watched on the full screen. So my sense is that the big screen, and hopefully if the big screen dies, I assume CES will die too, because when you walk around the floor, there's many, many big screens, and they get bigger and bigger. My question for you, Mani, is do you think the big screen actually has a future?
I do, but I think that discovery is happening on the mobile device. I think that's where, even if you just take some of the numbers that happened over the holidays, where you've got 60% of all of the Amazon shopping being done on a mobile device. So I think discovery happens on the smaller screen. And then when it's important, and whether it's casting to a big screen or eventually you get all of that content on the big screen, I think it's still really important. But I do think discovery is happening on the smaller screen. Now, my family, this is probably not a testament to my parenting skills here, but my son likes to watch YouTube. That is his favorite thing to do, and he does that on a tablet, and he watched some English guy, Stampy Longhead, talk about playing Minecraft. Now, we've limited that in our house because we think think that's probably not good for his long-term success, but that's what he does. Now, if I'd let him do that on the big screen, that would probably even be greater. But I don't think the big screen is dying, but I think discovery is happening on the mobile device first.
Mark, small screen, I'm sure you know these distinctions, and I'm interested in some anecdotes from your business, but I'm guessing that the small screen is intimately bound up with social media, is it? And social media is increasingly becoming the front door for video?
I think that's right, but I think what's happening now is the integration of other digital, all the multicast platform and what we can deliver via that with Twitter, for example, which is on the IndyCar app now. So you can go back and forth and do both at the same time. For us, the big screen still matters. You know, for a sport, all the content, all the growth in terms of younger people is driven by the mobile devices and this rich content we can deliver. But we still get a bigger audience at the moment, not growing as fast, but a bigger audience from television. So a lot of sports are sort of trapped in this box related to rights, and we're working very hard with Verizon and our partners to manage that. But really, if it's fan engagement, we're going to grow both as quickly as we can.
Marnie, what are you seeing? You know, you have many millions of users. What are you seeing in terms of their perception about what they're paying for when they take out a Verizon subscription, and they're also presumably paying for cable? In the consumer's mind, are these things becoming confused?
Well, you know, we have both cable properties and we also have wireless. Obviously, wireless is the fast-growing business. I think two different kind of customers. If I think about the millennial customer, I don't think they care much about cable at all. Maybe they're using their parents' subscription
wow. So
their login credentials to authenticate. But
why is that, by the way? I'm curious, because that's quite a striking thing to say.
Well, I think it's happening all over. In fact, we did a focus group, and the amount of college students who share their logins to authenticate is pretty amazing. You've even seen some different models around that where content providers or carriers are now offering special packages for college campuses. But for us, the adoption, I'll go back to the pay for, we do think there's a tolerance for how much a consumer will pay. Eventually, there has to be different models. So today, we have data buckets that you can purchase, and we include properties like our NFL content in that. You pay for utilization when you watch it, but there's not a subscription fee. We think there's subscription models that make sense, and then ultimately, there's ad-supported models that would make sense as well, where the consumer's not paying, but somebody else in that value chain pays for that. So I think there's a number of different models that will make that make sense, but we recognize that the consumer has a tolerance that they're not going to go too far above and beyond what.
But we're living in a very unusual time where these business models are up for grabs. These are not normal times. Is that fair in your business?
Well, I think the consumer is demanding that the models change. Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen. You asked the question to Hans about, is it right for everything to happen this year? And I think you're seeing signs that the content providers in particular see new opportunities, particularly with the millennial subscriber where they know they're not going to get that cable subscription or that content subscription. So there has to be new innovative models. And so I'm encouraged by the discussions we're having with our partners where they see incremental models for the new customer and ways to get to the mobile device.
I know, Hans, and every big company, every large technology company, to survive has to be perpetually reinventing themselves. I know, Hans, you're getting into the video business. Could you imagine being a video company? Is that far-fetched?
I think that it's so revolutionary, all this with sort of the technology. I mean, remember, for 100 years we built networks with one service, and that was voice. And we thought that was the end of everything. I mean, now we know that voice is going to be the smallest part of the network. So, of course, when we see that evolution, of course, going into media has been and video very clear for us, both because companies like Verizon, they can do that because with the capabilities. But not only that, you have all the broadcasters as well that see the same opportunity that they can use all these devices. So for us, it's obvious that we should be into video and media, both from technology point of view, where we have acquired a lot of companies. Not only that, also in the service space where we are running broadcasters, networks, etc. So for us, it is a way for us to stay relevant and actually be a speaking partner with our customers that are having understanding your evolution, because there are so many choices, and this is one choice for sure.
Mark, does it matter whether it's Verizon or Comcast or Ericsson who is providing the video? As a content guy, do you care?
You know, I remember the days, I'm getting a little long in the tooth, when, just to back up one step, when, yes, there was just television, and I was at Olympic seminars when people were lamenting that it's no longer free to air, there's cable and satellite, and what happens with this fragmentation. The pace of change was so slow and is now almost dizzying. So for us, the most important thing is to have partners like Verizon that are technologists. We're not. We have to understand each other, what they can bring to the table for us, what our objectives are in reaching fans. And I care less about exactly how we get there and more about the relationship with the technology company, which has served us so well.
That's great to hear. So what exactly do they do? I mean, they give you the security to run your stuff so that you don't have to worry about it, wake up in the middle of the night?
It starts with development. So we get in the same rooms and we think about our business objectives. And we have, I mean, we're talking about entertainment, but there's a whole nother level that's more our stakeholders and the way we operate our business. So for example, safety trucks on tracks, right? Now they're streaming data so that the safety guys know what they're getting to as the additional trucks come up. Google Glass is going to be on their faces so that the medical people know what's coming. There's all kinds of ways that Verizon has helped us with technology in addition to our ability to entertain.
And I would guess, I mean, it's nice to hear, Marnie, but perhaps you could pay Hans the same compliment, that just as Mark relies on you, you rely on Hans.
Yeah.
Am I forced to do that?
No.
Good friend. He is a good friend. Here's what I would say, though, and this is really with Ericsson and Verizon working together. I mean, we have a long history of investing in the network to make it the most reliable, first starting with voice. But if you think about video, it's an application that runs over our LTE network, and we continue to invest in that. Developing new capabilities like multicast with our partners allows us to make sure that that video is as reliable as we first set out with the foundation of our network. So that's critical, and you know, sometimes people take that for granted that we invest billions of dollars every year to keep our network the way it is, but that's an important and critical point to making this all happen.
I mean, I've been coming to CES for years. We all remember dial-up days. We all remember when you couldn't do video. Then we remember that video did barely work. I'm assuming that consumers now expect it to work. It's like switching the TV on, right?
They do. They absolutely expect it to work, and that's why we're excited about multicast, because we'll be able to do more in terms of live events. And you know, then we do things like Wi-Fi offload where it makes sense in large venues. But absolutely, if customers are paying you a service bill every month, they expect it to work.
Say something more about multicast, the kinds of things you're doing.
So you'll see us today, we're seeding the base with handsets. It requires that the handset has that capability. So you'll see us in the mid part of this year start to deliver live events. I mentioned we're doing things with the automobile industry as well, delivering software upgrades over the air. You'll see us do things with IndyCar and NFL to deliver in-stadium experiences as well as out-of-stadium experiences.
So what's the business there? As a consumer, are you paying extra? How are you making money on that?
You know, we haven't talked publicly about how we're going to do the model, but I think it'll be a number of different ways. It could be free to consumer because you have an ad-supported model that would make sense. It could be subscription-based. So there's a number of different models that might work. There's also things like you know, corporations who may want to broadcast their earnings event or an educational thing. We think there's opportunities with higher education as well to do some unique things with multicast. So number of different business models, not one, but we're really excited about the opportunity.
Mark, you have a very good knowledge of the consumer. One of the great struggles of the internet economy over the last 20 years is monetizing, getting people to actually fork over cash. And we know the result of that in many ways. Do you think the consumer now is ready to pay for these enhanced experiences?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we'll all adapt to find the market, right? So as technology evolves and the offerings evolve, I think the pricing and the business models will change with it. But these folks really know the customer better than I, and so far they're just lifting our boat.
But you know your own members, right? I mean, are they
Yes.
happy to pay for special content, for a personalized experience, for intimacy with drivers and that sort of thing?
So we have great experience with that at the tracks, less so in terms of delivering this personal entertainment experience. But everything in my body believes the answer is yes. Premium value people pay for, whether that's the on-track experience or what they have in their hand on a mobile device.
Mani, what keeps you up at night? What are you worried about as this economy unfolds? I know spectrum is a big issue. Are there political concerns, technological concerns? What do we still need to solve?
Well, yeah, that's a big question, what keeps me up at night. The time zone was what I was going to say, but then you didn't ask that. So, look,
The
I
Colts,
think,
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. The Colts. Yeah, the Colts and the Broncos. You know, I think technology doesn't keep me up at night. That excites me. I think it's making sure that we can continue to offer to our consumers premium services that they adopt and that continue to drive value both to the consumer as well as our shareholders. And you know, that's my job. My job is how do we think about new revenue? How do we think about things that continue to capture and keep the customer loyal to Verizon? And you know, how do we work with our partners to do that? So
Is spectrum a big issue though for you?
you know, I disappear if I talk about spectrum. I just fall off the floor here, so I can't say much about that today.
What do you worry about, Hans?
I think two things. I mean, first of all, we talked about LTE broadcasting and what you can do around it. I think that's very important, and the lead is here in the US. And many of things are in the lead in the US when it comes to 4G and innovation, so there's no doubt about that. But one need to reflect of the rest of the world as well. When the LTE broadcast, I mean, the majority of many markets in the world, they don't have big screens, they don't have TV. They will actually have the biggest fortune of all to actually get the TV experience or content experience through some type of a smartphone device. And of course, the experience then with LTE broadcasting that is so efficient of using the spectrum, and scalable. You can scale from 1 person to 1 million person looking at the same content without contaminating the spectrum. Is of course a great opportunity for many regions of the world as well. So that's in my brain how I can take this forward, together with all the technologies we have for compression, caching, to see that the content get out, the digital right management, and that's what we are trying to build in order for different markets. But it's clear that North America is in the lead of LTE broadcasting. Live sport is the first, but I agree with you. There are so many other things you can think about using LTE broadcasting for when it comes to efficiency of delivery of video content. So I think we're just seeing the beginning of it, and I think this is a great example of it. We're going to see so many more.
Mark, do you have a wish list? Do you have something that we don't have that you'd really love?
More resources for us, because we need to keep up with these opportunities
Okay.
of innovation. I mean, now HD trucks go to produce live television, but there's a truck simply dedicated to controlling the production of the multicast. So it's a significant issue for us. We need to be cutting edge, and putting together the resources with our partners to do that is maybe our biggest concern. I think the wish list for us is when we get to the next step, where we can really communicate individually with our fans at a whole nother level and connect what they take, what they consume as entertainment to our discussions with them, our engagement with them on an everyday level that may not even be about entertainment per se.
Mani, let me leave the last word with you for this first section. You have, I guess, a privileged front seat on all this. You see everything as the new business person at Verizon. What should we be excited about that we currently don't have? What are we going to be talking about at CES in 10 years' time?
Oh my gosh, why did I get that last question? In
good
10
ending.
years' time. Wow, I
Or 5.
probably couldn't even predicted what we'd be talking about this year. You know, here is, and I'm maybe not going to answer your question, but I think that we're going to be talking about how the consumer is driving so much of these new business models. And if somebody would have said some of the things that have happened, shaken up with some of the, whether it's content providers or just mobile adoption, I think the consumer will continue to drive the industry to look at new business models and to force us to think differently. So we'll see what happens next year, you know, I think, but I can't answer your 10-year question because I'd be off and then Hans would hold me to it.
Well, I'll give Hans the last 30 seconds since you didn't take it all.
I had a dream. I sat there for 3-4 years ago and I talked about I want to have a sort of prepaid horsepower for cars. You might have remembered that, and I think that many laughed. But I think that just think about the future. You can actually buy horsepower for a car for 24 hours with these technologies, all connected cars. That's one. But if it bring that to my dream of sports events, is of course that I'm a little bit more of a sort of looking at team sports, and I see in front of me that we connect the basketball, the handball, the soccer ball. You connect all the shirts, and you get the full experience beyond only looking at the game in the future, and that's what I'm working on.
Well, I
That
can
was a
tell
much
you,
better answer.
I can tell you one thing for sure. The one thing I can predict for sure is that we're going to have a couple of guys come up in about 15, 20 seconds after they show the video. But first of all, I want to thank you guys. You've been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you. Thank you. Good seeing you.
So let's show the video, and then we'll have George and John up.
No. We hit 1 million subscribers.
Wow, well, George Strompoulos, I got your name right. The only guy on this panel whose name is difficult to pronounce, so please don't take it personally if I pronounced it wrong. George, is that the era of personal entertainment? We are all creators now, everybody. I know your background is at YouTube, and Fullscreen is a sort of a YouTube platform, distribution platform. Is that what it's all about?
I think it is, actually. There's a stat, I don't know if you guys caught it in that video, but it's one of my favorites. In 2006, 7% of people actively created content online. So basically, you know, maybe you had some crazy uncle who was a blogger or something like that, and that was about the extent of it. And today, 77% of internet users are creating content online. Now, this is counting everything from a social post to a video, but it is this new era of personal creation and consumption. Fullscreen is a media company that was built in this new world. We're supporting about 50,000 creators globally. These are the next generation of content creators. They're the stars, the filmmakers, the animators, the personalities that are sort of redefining the entertainment ecosystem today.
And you have to rely on this guy, John Donovan, head of technology and operations at AT&T, I assume, to make your thing run. Is that right?
We couldn't exist without John and the work that they're doing.
So, John, what is this era? Is this what it's all about? We're all creators now?
Well, personally, I'm not in the 77%. I'm trying to leave minimal digital exhaust everywhere I go. No, I do think, though, Andrew, when we are going to build a network today, everything we do is video first. You first design for video, and from a network provider, you know, our goal is invisibility. Like we provide oxygen. If it's not there, you'll know it very quickly, but it's not going to be top of mind because it isn't the experience. The content is the experience. And so our big challenge is you're going to run around this show and you're going to see the tale of two cities. Internet of Things, which taxes the heck out of the control plane with these short little packet messages, and then these fat sticky bits that come over the video pipe. But that's what we have to design to. And so for us, video is not a trend. It's our critical #1 design parameter for every network that we build.
So Hans, the video is the thing in itself. Do you agree with John?
Yes, I agree with John, and I just need to reflect as well. I mean, our family's 50% is doing the own production, and I'm not part of that 50%. So I guess I'm working to get into the 75. On the video, I think John is absolutely right, and I think that this is also, we are doing, we have the consumer lab, one of the biggest research labs in the world. Statistically, we're researching 1.1 billion subscribers every year. And for many years, we're always asking the consumers, what is the most important with the carrier, and why do you stay with them? And historically, it has been the price. But in a market where you sort of have passed a high degree of 4G and a lot of data in the network, they are now putting #1, mobile broadband consistency, the consistent experience. And basically, you can set it where you can do a video. That's a consistency. You need to have that all the time. That's more important than the price. And that tells me that what John is doing is extremely important, because that is what the consumer's loyalty is going when you come so far as the operators here in the US and AT&T and a couple of others. So I think this is very important when it comes to video experience.
John, you can raise your prices then.
Well, I was just listening to Hans, and when they say what problem do you have with Ericsson, I always say the price. I don't always mean it. It's the second item.
Okay, we're going that way tonight.
No. We're negotiating on stage this year.
Yeah, on stage. That's great. I like it.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Only 500 witnesses. It's fine.
George, what about price? Let's diffuse this. I mean, you explain your business model, your clients, and how you actually make money.
Sure. So I spent 5.5 years working at YouTube. And while I was there, I helped build something called the YouTube Partnership Program. It's essentially how creators, independent creators all around the world, make money off of YouTube. They participate in a revenue share of the advertisements. What I realized while I was there was that the tools of the social web have enabled and created basically the fertile soil for a whole new wave of content creators to emerge. It's really a new creative class. Variety publication did a study and said to US teens and millennials, they said, who are your biggest stars? And they stack ranked the list, and the top 100, you had some names like the big Hollywood actors and musicians, but about 50% of them were actually personalities and creators that were born on YouTube, were born on Twitter, were born on Facebook. And so these platforms are really the media playground for creators and companies like Fullscreen to exist. So we actually don't spend a lot of time thinking about price of network and price of bandwidth, because really we're riding on platforms. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we don't have to pay the fees ourselves, but it's a curse because the platforms dictate the experience for the user and the creator. And so we basically benefit when platforms exist on networks that are doing a great job. To put it into perspective, in 2011, the year that Fullscreen was founded, about 7% of our video viewership happened on mobile devices and tablets. In 2015, we will probably cross 65%. And we do about 5 to 6 billion video views per month now. So it's a massive, massive scale network of video viewership and consumption and creation, and it's all moving over the network now to the mobile and tablet devices.
You're nodding your head, Hans.
Yeah, I mean, this is really where you're going. I mean, we talk about app coverage more and more, and because this is sort of enormously important for consistency of the broadband experience, and especially the mobile broadband, because the majority of the teenagers are actually using the mobile phone as their number one device as connectivity. And here comes a lot of challenging in the network, and of course AT&T and the guys are working on that. Everything from how you compress it, how you get to the right screen, how you provision it, and so you actually have that experience on video. I mean, it might seem simple, but remember we're talking about radio frequencies that you need to send this data on, and actually finally it's going to get there with the right size, the right screen, the right speed, and all of that. And that's totally decisive. That's going to be a great experience.
So John, this isn't a leading question. It's not just an opportunity for you to boast about AT&T. We all know that AT&T had some bad press a few years ago about the quality of your mobile. Now you don't get that. I'm an AT&T subscriber. I think it's excellent. I know you're going to tell me it's because AT&T is great, but is it also because the technology has changed? Is it also because now guys like Hans are providing you with stuff that work consistently and there are no longer any problems?
Was that a rhetorical question you just answered? No, I think there are several elements of it, Andrew. I think the first is there are deep inside the network, there were technological changes, and you know, Hans's team and our teams, you know, we spent a lot of time in Sweden and the United States banging our heads against the wall of how to pull apart the microprocessors and how they were handling the control plane, because at that time we didn't know what an app on a network would do, right? And we had a lot of problems. So there were a lot of technological advances. I think Ericsson certainly did a really great job of stepping up in the dark days. The other thing is that we kind of paused from trying to pick what people would do, and we came back and said we need to be world-class at forecasting. And unlike your previous panel that sort of ducked the question of where are we going to be in 5 years, I always answer the question in terms of consumption. I have a pretty good sense we're going to be very tight on our forecast now. We just don't know what it's going to be.
What do you mean tight on your forecast?
Well, I mean that from the standpoint of the network, you look at video usage on the network. George talked about a 10x increase in a 4-year period,
Yes,
but what he didn't do is say that was 10x growth on a number itself that was growing. So when you look at how much tax there is on the network, we knew that was coming. What we didn't know is whether it would be George or whether it would be FaceTime became everything and people only did video calling. So we have a lot of sparklers, colorful things that burn out quickly. We have other things that surprise people, but what now we're deep enough into this curve that it's no longer a surprise that something is coming and that it's going to be video-based and it's going to drive a bunch of demand on our network, and we're very good at now mathematically modeling how much capacity we need.
And
this is the part that this is the mathematical version of a brag clip. We're world class now at knowing what our demand needs to be. We just don't know which app is going to come and take the old, you know, be the new great thing.
I mean, are you ready for that 5-year scenario?
Do I look worried?
You never look worried, John.
Yeah, I think we're ready.
Will you disappear if you mention Spectrum? Is that an issue for you?
It's actually, there's an auction underway. I won't disappear because I won't mention it.
George, I won't ask you about Spectrum, obviously a dirty word tonight. But what you're seeing, you see the consumer, I'm guessing also that they are incredibly impatient if this stuff doesn't work. They just assume it works, and if it doesn't, they get extremely angry. Is that right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we have pretty good data on how the videos in our network are being consumed and drop-off rates and things like that. And you know, the biggest deterrent is actually an advertisement. Of course, you know, we monetize our viewership through pre-roll ads and things like that. And you know, once people sit through that, then it's about, you know, the quality of the delivery. And you know, particularly on a mobile device, where there are a million different things to click on. It's a real issue, but I think, you know, today...
What do you mean it's a real issue?
I mean, you want the playback to be seamless, right? And
at the moment it isn't? Or?
At the moment it isn't, you'll see extreme drop-off. It's crazy, yeah. Close the window, close the tab.
Can you solve this for him, Hans?
I think that yes, of course, but it's all come back to that technology will play a vital role in this, and of course how you predict it, and as John said, I mean, the predictability here is enormously important. Maybe not exactly what type of app, but with the growth of smartphone devices all around the world and the consumption, of course we can do it, but we have also consumer demand that we've never seen before, which is enormous. The consumer, I remember 3G came and we were some at least that was screaming, now the mobile internet is coming, and we built networks with a lot of capacity, nothing happened. We are in another era. We see the consumer driving it and using the networks in a totally different way. And I think that technology-wise you can do it, it's just that you need to know where and how you're going to do it. And there are new techniques for everything, for compression, for caching, for seeing that you do it right, using the right technology, indoor coverage. You need to do a lot. And of course, the operators in the US, I would say, are the most advanced. I mean, this is, I would say, the most advanced technology market in the world right now. I mean, maybe Korea and Japan could be challenging a little bit, but US is really forefront because of innovators and technology drivers.
So John, what aren't you getting from Hans that you want? What's next?
Well, I think that it's when you look at video over mobile, you look at integrating the experience across screens. I think there's a lot of work to do in user interface. I don't want to pick on Hans and the answer, but I do want to highlight within user experience, there's a bunch of things that we need to do in our content contracts. There's a bunch of things we need to do to make George's stuff. So I'm going to give you a use case.
What do you mean content contract? I'm not clear.
Well, we have to be, contractually, we may have content rights for linear programming, but then not have those rights when you leave the house. So how do you make it so that I can pause on the TV, pick up my tablet, go in the car, sit in the back seat, and pick up exactly where I left off? The user experience needs work from every dimension. We had talked about it. I'll contrast old versus new and say, what don't we have? If I want to watch a football game, I turn on Uverse and I put channel 1004. And it's going to be the football game every Sunday. And that's really easy, and then my kids grown, and then they leave. And then what they do is they pick up a tablet, and they'll spend 8 minutes hunting and pecking to search for a 2-minute video clip that's awesome. Then they run in the room and they want to show everybody. So why is the one so easy to find, and the other one, our kids are now in this view that there's this overhead that's been delivered because they have to go through a hunt and peck, which is George's business model of saying you don't have to hunt and peck. We're going to make that in your world so much easier to consume that you don't have to run out of the living room, you don't have to groan, you're just like, whatever, Dad, and then you go and you pull up something, you put in your headphones, and then you stay in the room. So all of those things, the user experience, moving across screens, recognizing that there is a big market for a 2-minute video and a 10-minute video and a 20-minute video, and that's where, if you can't get excited about where we are right now, there's something wrong with you. Because everything's moving from where it was to a new place, and everything's thrown up in the air. It's like a blast.
So I completely understand. You're really talking about user interface revolution. Would you agree, George? And we're beginning of this thing. I mean, I know it's silly to talk about 10 years' time, but when we're sitting here in 10 years' time, do you think the biggest change will be in the area that John talked about, in this user interface, which means that the video experience will be rather like the internet experience? I know with my home use of television, the user interface is in 1980. It's a catastrophe.
That's right.
It must not be ours.
No names.
I think the user interface is important. I think one big change we'll see is just new networks emerging. I think a lot
You mean new content networks?
Yeah, content networks.
Like a YouTube or?
A YouTube perhaps, or I think of the cable bundle and the networks that exist in that bundle, and if subscribers are down, that's going to be a serious problem, not necessarily for the provider, but for the network itself. And at the same time, where all this is sort of playing out, you have new companies like Fullscreen and our peers emerging online and saying, you know what, we're not going to be part of that model because we started later, not for any other reason than that. And I think those networks are going to become very powerful.
I wonder if we could use the analogy of music. Say we're in about 1999 or 2000. In those years, we had the technology, we had the music players, but Steve Jobs had not reinvented the music industry. Does it need a major player like an Apple? And of course, there are many rumors about Apple eventually coming out with a serious play in television. Does it need a major player to blow this thing up?
Personally, I don't think so. I think the technology is already there to go over the top. It's a little bit challenging from a content provider standpoint to deal with multiple platforms and recreate your container in different environments, from the set tops to the carriers to the app environments. But it's ultimately work that's worth doing. It would be nice if that was standardized, but I don't frankly see that happening in the near term.
Hans, will there be a major step, a major company, whether it's a company like Apple or a new company or Google, or somebody reinventing this to make it a more seamless user experience, the one that John's talking about? Maybe even it could be AT&T or Verizon.
I think that, whoever's going to get in there, I think that this is so exciting. Video, and of course, going to have a lot of people coming in. But I think two things. One, content has always been king. That's a sort of a saying. But what we have listened to these two gentlemen talking about, distribution will almost be a king as well. Because the way you distribute it, that is how the experience is going to be. That you can distribute it in different places, you can move it around and doing all of that. So you need to think about, we are getting in an era where technology is going to be playing a very vital role to make all that experience as well. And I think that beside that we are doing technology together, AT&T and Ericsson or etc. Another thing that we're doing as well is trying to educate the content developers and the app developers doing the apps as efficient as possible to use the network, because that's another way to get a better experience. So there are many things you can touch about. So I think that the distribution is going to be key, because you want to distribute the content so many different ways, and technology needs to help with that. Content is king, but it's close now that distribution is going to be very close.
John, you described the challenge beautifully. How does it get solved?
I think like most things, you'll have an evolution. A lot of times we like to place a technological breakthrough as a revolution, and my view is a revolution is just an evolution that hits a tipping point, and you wake up one day and somebody happened to be in that spot at that time. I think the evolutionary part of it is happening. I think people have started to seam together things. They've put together things that don't naturally fit together. As technology matures, Andrew, people worry less about the components. So, for instance, back when I was doing computer science, just after the punch cards, you actually had to write your print drivers. You had to actually give instructions. So we've abstracted so many things. We're going to get that way with user interface. Everything will be an abstraction that builds on the old, and the really hard problems are getting solved now, technologically, so that artists can come in and actually figure out how a person wants to think and act and make that manifest. Those building blocks need to be there. So I think the evolution is well underway to set the stage for what will become a revolution where everybody completely goes and remakes it, and everybody says, darn it, why didn't we think about that a long time ago?
Well, we're at the Consumer Electronics Show with a focus on the consumer. What are you doing at AT&T to make this experience more seamless?
Well, you've seen we've done everything from announce a merger in the space to deploy new technology in the network to starting to integrate the properties ourselves. Uverse has a really rich set of things you can do on a tablet. We have a big channel lineup, and we're trying very, very hard to get people what they want, where they want it. I mentioned earlier, the hardest part for us was philosophically to wake up one day and say, whether you choose to or want to, whether the economics are good, bad, or indifferent, you are in the video delivery business in all of your networks. Over the top, underneath, linear, non-linear, whatever it is, you're in it. So you have to wake up one day and say, we are a video distribution business across everything we do. And that part of the hurdle we've leaped. We're there. We understand it.
Mark, George, I asked Mark this question as well. How important are partners like John or Hans for you?
Particularly very important just to be able to do what we do, to make it so that people can upload content, that they can consume the content in a seamless way. That's a given. And you know, I'm glad there are smart people working on that every day. Where it becomes even more important for full screen over time is as we begin to control our own distribution over the top. So we exist on YouTube, we exist on Vine, we exist on Twitter and all the social platforms. And I kind of think of that as our farm system. That's where we develop talent, that's where we monetize, that's where we build audience. But eventually we want to program in a premium environment, sort of our version of an HBO Go or a Netflix. And in that, from that point of view, partnerships that can help with distribution as well as, you know, seamless playback are always going to be really important.
So you're not a television killer. You can still work within the current business environment, the cable environment.
I think so. I mean, when we think about our business, you know, linear television is still an interesting thing to us as well. Particularly, we're growing up in an era where the talent that is successful today has grown up with stars that were successful on TV, so there's still this aspiration there. I do think in about 5 to 10 years, young people who are growing up will want to be like the Fine brothers, like iJustine, like Smosh, like some of the stars you saw in this video, and it'll be less aspirational to be a TV star. You'll just want to be a successful creator. But we're in a bridge time, I believe.
Well, let me ask you, let's do the 5 or the 10-year thing again. Let me ask you a specific question. In 10 years' time, Hans, will we have separate words for the internet, on the network, and television? Will the word television still exist?
Yeah, so television will exist. I mean, linear TV will exist, but I think that we see all the growth is coming on sort of streaming, and you do it at your convenience. But of course, linear TV will be there, but not to the extent today.
Why, of course?
No, I think there are certain things that linear TV, I mean, a sports event, I cannot see that you want to rerun on the finals of NHL or something. You want to see that time, that linear, that time. So it's going to be information that you want to have linear, but I see that a big portion will be streamed or consumed in another way where you want it at different type of devices, for sure. And in all the research we're doing, that is going so fast. Linear TV is going down. But consumption of videos...
Down? You mean that people don't want it anymore?
No, they look less on linear TV, but they consume more video content or TV content, but they're doing it in other forms just. It's...
And you agree, George?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've seen as the online video consumption is growing, you know, based on the research we've looked at, the TV has not changed significantly. You know, I think, back to your question, I think we'll talk about TV as the device. You know, there will still be the flat screen.
You mean the physical
Yeah,
product.
exactly. I mean, we still call phones, but they're really computers that happen to make phone calls, right? So I think there will be a little bit of a semantics thing where we're just used to calling these certain things what we do. But the delivery and how they get there, you know, I think will change significantly.
Final word, as always, with John. Future of television. Is that word going to go away, John? Are we going to be using it in 10 years?
Yeah, I think that my view is that that 5 to 10 years from now, everything will be in context. So it won't just be preference-based. I won't have to program it. My devices will learn me, and then that will be the beginning of the relationship. I don't teach it, it learns. So behaviorally, it picks up. And so everything will be in context. What I see Saturday, they know that. So when I turn my television on Sunday morning, it knows that it's beginning of football season, and it automatically tunes to the channel. The thought process that my repeat behaviors, the only worry that I have, the double edge of that sword is that when these new programmers come in, when the apps start to come out, that things get curated. What I love right now is the effort my kids have to put into discovery. And when you curate, you have given the answer. So I don't want to turn parenting over to George, not yet. He can do his own parenting.
Idea.
But yeah. But you know what I'm saying is, as you start to get smart systems, you start to narrow it in, and then the breadth disappears, and then all you're really doing is having someone else raise your child. But I do think, though, there's such huge benefit to this context because it eliminates these steps.
Well, this has been fascinating. More questions in many ways than answers. The era of personal entertainment is obviously just starting, changes everything. And I want to thank these guys for a really fantastic, and for the first two speakers, a really fantastic discussion. Thank you so much.